Chairman Wilkins and the rest of the Environmental Affairs Committee for passing this through. What House Bill 1318 is about is that there are over 20% of the homes and buildings in the city of Gary are vacant and abandoned. That's roughly 6,500. This creates significant public safety concerns for the citizens of the occupied homes, including crime and fire hazard. This vacancy problem poses significant economic challenges to the residents in the occupied structures by eroding the value of their homes. To combat this challenge, the city has embarked on an aggressive plan to demolish the vacant and abandoned buildings that are creating challenges to safety and security of the residents. A significant cost factor in the aggressive demolition plan is the cost of disposal of and transportation of construction debris taken from the houses. This includes bricks, scrap lumber, stones, and the like. The cost of transportation to this type of construction debris to the city of Gary will cost about $4,000 a home. With over 6,000 houses slated for demolition, we're talking to help solve the problem and eliminate blight in the city, we're talking about a cost of over $20 million. If there was a C&D in the city limits, the city would be able to otherwise deploy those dollars, leverage other federal funding for construction and demolition, and even create self-help revenue stream for the city. I want to emphasize, because there's been a lot of information out there that is incorrect about House Bill 13, the city of Gary is not looking to establish a landfill to accept garbage or hazardous materials that present a risk to human health. Rather, the city seeks to establish a construction and demolition site which will accept specific types of waste that are currently defined in the IAC and excludes more hazardous materials. The 329 IAC 10-2-37 construction and demolition waste is defined as construction and demolition waste means solid waste resulting from construction, remodeling, repair, or demolition of structures. Some of the waste, and I won't list all of them because there's a little bit of a list here. This again includes things like scrap metal, bricks, and stone. The term does not include the following types of regulated materials such as fluorescent light structures, appliances, regulated asbestos materials, etc., and any other waste resulting from construction, remodeling, repair, and demolition of construction that, when placed in a landfill, would potentially result in contamination of groundwater or present risk to human health or the environment. The bill adds definition language to the IC that mirrors the IAC regarding construction and demolition waste. Secondly, the bill addresses the half-mile rule. The half-mile rule restricts sanitary landfills from being built within a half-mile of residential areas in Lake County. Sanitary landfills, unlike C&D sites, are defined by law to include general and more restricted waste. Again, I'm going to repeat because there's been a lot of misinformation and confusion. The city is not seeking to establish a sanitary landfill. The city is seeking a clear exemption from the half-mile rule for such needed construction and demolition site for the purpose of significant and costly and vacant blight demolition program. So, in conclusion, because I know you're all waiting for those words, this bill will clarify the definition of construction and demolition waste so that the IC clearly mirrors IAC, exempt construction and demolition site in Gary from the half-mile rule, maintains other regulatory controls on the site, and allows Gary to pursue a path of fiscal self-sustainability at a $20 million cost savings, while also addressing a significant challenge of public health and safety. I want to add a few more, very quickly, things. The materials that will be put into this site are recyclable. So these are things that will be reused. So I want to make sure I point that out. Also, the city of Gary, before coming and talking to us about legislation, actually went to IDEM. So IDEM is whom instructed the city, this is the necessary path to get through what they want. And the last thing I want to point out is this will create jobs in the city of Gary, in the area in Northwest Indiana. So when you talk about helping with blight, which really touches on safety, when you talk about economic development, and you're also talking about jobs. So I'd be happy to answer any questions, and I ask for your support on House Bill 1318. Thank you.
Further discussion on the bill. Representative Soliday to speak on the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, ladies and gentlemen of the House. It's really an important bill for Gary. There are, as Representative Harris said, there are a number of abandoned homes there. They're a safety issue. And as we're trying to rebuild northwest Indiana in the heavily industrialized areas, to move these construction materials a long way is an expense that, quite frankly, the city can't afford. And this is a very good way to help us in renovation of the city and bringing new residents there. So I'd really encourage you to vote for the bill.
Further discussion. Representative Wilkins. You're recognized.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. I've got a very unusual testimony and request, and I'm asking a couple of you, don't hold up the signs. I got a lot to say on this. I say it's an unusual request because I'm going to ask you to support the bill. I want to tell you why I'm voting against it. You know, I've never been one that believes the end justifies the means. In this case, the end result. They need to be able to have this facility. It's going to save them a ton of money. It needs to happen. But the means to get to that end is what I'm objecting to. In my view, it is clearly unconstitutional. Now, I'm not trying to replace Representative Anita Bowser, who used to be here and used to be the resident expert on constitutional matters, but I have stayed at a Holiday Inn. So in a minute, I'm going to quote you the Indiana Constitution. A little history. Indiana has about 500 bills. We used to, when we wanted to do something for just our district, we'd come in and say, okay, this applies to us. If I wanted Warsaw, do something for Warsaw, I'd say it applies to a city of 6,200 to 6,300. And it would go into effect. Indiana has about 500 bills that we've done that are on the books now. We would put population parameters in. One of those is Lake County. Lake County, in the state of Indiana, you only have to be 600 feet to be able to put a landfill in. In Lake County, they passed one of these bills that said you got to be a half mile. At that time, they were trying to stop the J pit, and it went into effect. So it's one of the 500 special bills that we have in there. 2001, 2002, City of South Bend had a case where there was a big annexation issue. At that time, Indiana law was 65%. If 65% of you objected to it, you couldn't do it. South Bend, they tried to put it down to 50%. The lower court said, yep, it's constitutional. It went all the way up to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court said, no, you cannot have a bill based on parameters like this. It's special legislation. They overturned it, and they did not go back and address the other 499 because they said there may be a case where you can make an exception. Article 4, Section 23 of Indiana Constitution says, in all cases enumerated in the preceding section and in all other cases where a general law can be made applicable, all laws shall be general and of uniform operation throughout the state. You got to have them the same. As I mentioned, they didn't throw out the other 500 because there may be a case where you can. If you own a home in Gary, you're only going to have to, they can put in this case, a C&D landfill. Everything he said is correct. This is not a sanitary landfill. This is a C&D construction demolition. Not bad stuff. If you're in Gary, they can put one within 600 feet. If you're in Hammond, East Chicago, got to be a half mile. I think it's going to be very difficult for Gary to argue. If anybody challenges, that's not a common law for both of them. I had an amendment yesterday that would have changed this, made it so that it would be constitutional. It was simply going to remove the half-mile limitation, put Gary on the same basis, or put Lake County on the same basis as everybody else. It would do away with the half-mile limitation. I met with all of the Lake County delegations that they were adamantly opposed to it. They were convinced that the political fallout of it would be such that they absolutely didn't want to do it. So I did not offer it. Representative indicated that he would withdraw the bill, and I did not want that to happen, so I didn't offer it. Pretty easy for me. I live in a very conservative district. It's pretty easy to be independent when you don't have to worry about the political aspect of it. I realize that, but I have a hard time. If you want to do it right, you ought to do it right, and this bill is not doing it right. I almost even considered having that meeting, having Representative Mosley come up and give us his speech about local control, because this thing isn't going to happen unless Gary wants it, or if it goes in any other place, it has to be local control. So if you don't want it, you don't have to have it. So the political ramifications, I didn't think they were there, but they were. I'm not picking on Gary. Representative Reski, one of my good friends from Anderson area, tried to stop a Mallard Lake landfill, and he had all kinds of site-specific rules why he couldn't do it. I came up here and made the infamous Taco Bell, and I won't take a time to amendment to show how absurd it was, the types of things he was doing. In any case, Gary needs this facility. I'm asking you to support the bill, but on principle, I can't. Not because of the content of the bill, because of the way the bill is stated. Thank you.
Further discussion on the bill? Representative Tor, you're recognized to speak on the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I hadn't planned on, ladies and gentlemen of the House, I hadn't planned on talking on this bill, but I do want to address this constitutionality issue because I looked at the case yesterday that Wilkins is referring to. And, you know, I'm not a constitutional lawyer. I'm not even a lawyer. I'm not even sure I've ever spent a night at a Holiday Inn Express. But we do have a lot of laws that have these parameters of county with a population between 500,000 and 600,000. And what the court said in that St. Joe County annexation case is that given just that, there's a presumption that it's constitutional because theoretically another county could at some point get into that range of population. Just like there's an exception to the alcohol in the alcohol statute for the prohibition that you can't bring alcohol into your own alcohol into a place of entertainment. There are a couple of exceptions that are written cutely for Conner Prairie, and there's one that says you can bring your own alcohol into a facility with a racetrack that's 2.5 miles long with at least 250,000 fixed seats. Now we all know who that was written for, but if somebody in Fort Wayne decided to build a 2.5-mile speedway track and set up stands with at least 250,000 seats, the law would apply to that facility. And so that's what the court said. In that case, the court found that there were other factors beyond just the parameter of population that made it unconstitutional, not the population parameters itself. So I just want to clarify that so you can vote for this with a clear conscience.
Thank you, Representative Tor. Further discussion on the bill? Right to close?
Waives the right to close. Question is on the